and get it popping. Get it popping. And if I'm sniffling, as you know, that's kind of why, because I'm a little ill. But part two of content creation. I'm going to briefly just review the content buckets and then mainly get into Chat GBT, and how we can use Chat GBT and other AI technologies to help us create content. Right. That's usually, at least for me, that's like one of the things that takes the longest is like writing descriptions, trying to come up with ideas for content. So it's really dope. Really dope. Um, uh-oh. Is it still up there from last time? Oh, it's not. Okay, so really quick, we got our content buckets. So buckets of content are different types of content that we're going to be posting. Again, the artwork, it's amazing. I know. So here, let's say we got, I believe, sorry, at the top, we're talking about our business, right? So we'll just say, let's make it useful for us, right? ESG, Entrepreneur Support Group.
Is it supposed to be loading or is it supposed to be showing on the screen? Or you just
Yeah.
where you because I'm not seeing it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you are.
How about now?
It, there we go. Yep.
Good. All right, bet. All right, so we'll say our topic slash industry is ESG, Entrepreneur Support Group. And then we got our buckets of content. And you can just like rattle them off as I'm creating my beautiful artwork. Types of bucket of content, obviously, like, motivational quotes.
Yeah. Trying to think of what gosh, last week feels like forever ago.
Well, I know last week we did 3-on-3 leagues
Yeah.
was our topic.
Oh, because you're okay. Never. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So maybe I'm not as awake as I thought I was this morning. We have
uh,
Bookshares,
book shares.
Zoom reminders.
The actual Zoom call itself.
Yes.
We could even put clips.
We have homework posts too. And random like articles, webinars, stuff like that, the free stuff that people can access for educational purposes.
Said webinars, and articles.
Yeah, things like that.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's get one more. We can just say Zoom call clips. That's a different type of
Yeah.
content, short form.
Which is something we probably need to start doing.
Yeah, now that we have like 5 or 6 weeks of it
Yeah.
now.
It's crazy that
Um,
we've been doing this for this long now. Because
right?
that's also something that we can share on our personal pages to market so that we're not giving them access to full content to make them, want to come and see, hey, what else are you doing?
Mm-hmm. It's good. That's good. Um, so I always my thought process is we create the bucket so that way it makes it easier for us to schedule content. Like last week, I like to do 7 because there's 7 days in the week.
Mhm.
So that way you have types of content for each day of the week. So, motivational quotes, you just come up with four quotes. That's the whole month of Monday. Book shares, come up with 4 books. That's the whole month of Tuesday, and so on and so forth. So it makes it really easy to pre-plan your content so you don't have to think about it. So now I'm going to share my screen. I was messing with Chat GBT earlier, trying to get some blog posts and whatnot going. But
So I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. I'd never heard of this until you talked about it. And now I can't remember what article I was reading on Apple News because I randomly read a bunch of different stuff just to kind of be aware of like just life outside of my bubble.
mhm.
And so it's not like, I mean, I read everything from political to environmental to just completely random articles. And this, I can't remember what this one was, but somebody was talking about this in the article. I was like, oh, wow, now I know what this is.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate cheat code, I promise you. So like we can even use quotes, right? I think that was one of our buckets, different quotes. So give me 5 quotes about entrepreneurship.
Much better than last time.
Just like that. It's because the question was a lot simpler. I was like, give me a blog article with the tone of, but also sound like a little bit like Barack, but like with a little, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and copy these quotes. Shoot, we ain't doing this for nothing. Uh, so there, we got 5 quotes for the next month. What's another?
I say, well, Thursday's already scheduled. So
Yeah.
I've scheduled through Friday because I'm like, I don't want to I've got other stuff I need to catch up on since last week was a waste.
So even because we didn't put it on the whiteboard, but like long for blog posts, like if we wanted to use this to help us write a blog post, let's say it was an area we were ignorant in, let's say Facebook ads, running ads. How do you successfully run ads on Facebook? And the interesting thing about this is that, okay,
Alrighty then.
right, right. So I'm going to delete that chat and start a new one, new chat.
So if you're talking blog posts, because I know you said you did this the other day, like how are you using the content that it gives you for a blog post? Because I mean, it's bad enough as an individual, but especially if we're talking about this as a group and businesses kind of need to know this as well so that they don't get themselves in hot water. How do you balance like the content that you're getting versus plagiarism? Are you editing the content? Or are you copying, pasting? Like, what are you doing with the content once you get it?
That's a good question. Typically, what I do with the blog posts is like in school when you used to plagiarize stuff and go on. Oh, we
Okay,
never
I
did
was the
that.
good kid, so I didn't do that.
You didn't do
That's
that.
why I'm
Okay.
asking, because the stakes are a little bit higher now. I mean, then it's failing out of college or failing a course, but now it's the potential of getting sued as your business if you're taking somebody else's information and putting it off as if it's your own. So
Right.
entrepreneurs need to be very careful about how they're using content if they're using it for that purpose.
Yeah. Which actually, let's try this out. Create a blog post about about running Facebook ads with sources. What is it called when you cite content? What is it called?
Yeah,
You got
I
the
mean, they'd be with like sources or a works cited page or a bibliography.
with works cited. I used to hate those works cited pages. The format was never undefined. Okay.
I mean, at least it's telling you it can't do it this time versus thinking for 20 minutes.
Undefined. Create a blog post about tigers. But to answer your question, what I did was I copy and pasted the content, but as I was reading through it, I just kind of added my little flavor onto it. Because thinking out loud, I feel like you wouldn't get it would be similar to I'm writing a book, but I reference a book in my book.
But are you using, because you're saying you add, and again, I'm getting into specifics of this just because businesses do have a lot of money to lose in situations like that. So like, okay, clearly it knows nothing about Facebook ads, but it knows a lot about
Not
Tiger.
about tigers.
So like if you're taking this, you're saying you're adding your flavor to it. Are you leaving some sentences intact? Because even if you're referencing a book in your blog, or in, you're writing a book and you reference somebody else's, if it's a direct quote from the book, it's still supposed to be in quotes with that source cited. So if you're leaving sentences intact, I'm just trying to, and I mean, maybe I'm making this too complicated, but it's a risk because everybody likes to sue. Like, I just don't know where the balance is between putting it in your own words versus leaving some the exact same and adding a little flair to it randomly.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I'm not too sure how that would honestly work, but like even after saying this, saying like they don't have access to the internet, I generate my responses based on vast databases of information.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's going to be very hard for somebody to claim
Ownership.
yeah, like how do you claim, the definition of a tiger, right? Like how do you like that's a very or how do you claim to have like, oh, like that was my information about Facebook ads. It's like, well, yeah, but I could also maybe find the same information from another. I don't know. It's interesting debate. And I guess we'll see what happens in the coming like years as more people kind of catch wind of this. But I do think like just like in school, I do think like copy and paste will get you in trouble. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I think if it's income generating information. So like a blog post necessarily, like that's not really income generating. I mean, you could run ads, but it's like I'm not getting paid specifically for that article unless I'm working for like a magazine or something like that. But
I mean, it's still, though, it's visibility, which is part of marketing. I'm definitely taking this in a totally different direction than it was
no, but it
meant
would
to
even
go.
be
But that's
hard,
because,
like to even, if you
I
use
mean,
okay.
sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like even like, they gave us this blog post and I tried to ask them like, where'd you get the
Yeah.
information from? And it's like, I think using stuff like this, I don't even think it would allow you to, unless you actually said like, create an article about computers with sources.
Because I know like universities and stuff are having to deal with this now more with papers and stuff that they're trying to create. Yeah, the sources is what's throwing it for sure. Um, like universities are having to create either apps or software, or they're having to do a little bit more research to find out like if students are actually writing or if they're doing something like this. It may be not off of chat GPT, but off of something else, like just having, AI write it for you.
Learn something new.
Okay, but this is actually good because this is, people need to understand this as they're working with it, that they have a limit. So this is good that it's kind of nice to know that, how to kind of navigate it. But anyways, we'll go back to the point, and we can always do a little bit more research about like the content thing. And that's
Hmm.
because we don't want to venture into the area of stealing somebody else's ideas, because even that is, that is plagiarism in a sense. Or but yeah, that's something we can research at a later point. So back to what we're actually talking about.
Yeah. So just having tools like that to be able to expound upon a different area. It's almost like a resource you can just pull out and use, but obviously be mindful of
How you use it.
how you use it, right? Like because I feel like that's definitely going to be a topic of debate as we continue. Like different creatives and authors are going to be like, yo, like my content that's on the internet
Yeah.
is now used by this AI computer. But again, I don't know how these AI, bots even make money, or how, the companies who created them make money. Is it, clicks on the website or whatever? But I think it's definitely something to be mindful of as you're using it. Yeah, but that was just a follow up from last week.
Definitely much easier than Google because you're not sorting through a bunch of stuff that's irrelevant, trying to find the few things that actually apply to what you're doing.
Right.
Time saver. All right.
All right, go ahead.
All right. So you put on the homework post for people that like you're using these tools, your buckets especially, to schedule like 60 days out. And your homework was to schedule 30 days of content or to create 30 days of content. So for the people in the world who are time management deficient, which is a lot of people, how how are you doing that with 60 days? Are you setting one day aside and say, all right, I'm going to schedule the next 60 days of content so the rest of my 59 days can be everything else that I need to do besides this? Or are you taking a week by week approach? Or are you doing multiple different things to kind of like schedule that out? What are ways that people, so they've got these options now, they've got their buckets set up, they've got these different platforms to potentially schedule posts in different places, and they've got chat GPT to get more information on things. What do they do with it now?
Mm.
And you're actively doing this, so you're a good example of what do you do with this once you have all this. If they create their 30 days of content, what do they do? Is it just created so that every day is easy to post, or how are you utilizing the scheduling programs, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, good question. I think different strokes for different folks. And I say that because one of the things that I use, so I hired a marketing intern who helps me like edit my videos. They post on my social media for me. Um, and I give them access to my Google Drive, which has all of my videos on it. So I think to answer your question, the first thing is figure out what type of content you prefer, because it's much easier, with pictures and, written content to pre-schedule that as opposed to videos, which actually takes a process. You got to record it and you got to edit it and you got to so on and so forth. So figure out what type of content you prefer. And then the second thing, what I do is I usually put these types of content in different folders. So like in my Google Drive, I have a couple different types of content. I have like live tutorials where I'm actually like coaching a player and I'm mic'd up. I have just pictures that I've taken like of sessions. That's a different type of content. I have membership videos, which are the videos that I put on my membership platform. I think it might be better if I pull up my Trello. So using those buckets and creating folders and putting the content in those buckets makes the scheduling of it easy, because even, my marketing intern, we went through, I talked about last week how, on Instagram, if you schedule the content, it only posts on Instagram. So now you got to take that content and put it to these other platforms, but now it has an Instagram watermark, which affects. So what I did is I actually created like a system, like a standard operating procedures. And we'll get into more of this next week when we talk about like building our team.
That's a whole different blog, is that
Yeah, it's
operations or not blog, but Zoom.
So I actually shout out to YouTube University, but I actually got this from just watching scouring the internet and YouTube videos. So what they did was, so she had it set up. Let me move me out the way. She had it set up to where, she has like the long form content. She has like, if she's researching that content, then she can just move it over, whatever.
Gotcha.
If it's being recorded. So that way you kind of, okay, there it is. So that way you can just consistently like keep your content in order. And then also another thing was these labels. these labels are different platforms that the content can be scheduled on. So as you see, certain content can be used for multiple different platforms. So, for example, this could be a reel, this could be put on our membership platform. It's also a blog, and it's also YouTube. But reverting back to that standard operating procedures, what I ended up doing, and because I've been posting content for quite a while, I'm not saying I'm an expert at it, but I've definitely hit quite a few walls to kind of lead me to creating this system so that way I can hand it over to somebody and they can execute. But yeah, this is typically, I'm not going to read through all of it. I'll just kind of like slowly scroll through, but I typically have my intern, take the content from the bucket and run it through this system. So if it's content that's going on Instagram, we know this is our Instagram SOP. We know if content's going on Instagram, it's also going to go on Facebook Reels, and it's also going to go on TikTok, and it's also going to go on YouTube Shorts. And then we know, if something is going, on a blog post, like we have, for example, the podcast SOP. Oh, that's a video. I didn't actually list out the steps. But I'm not sure if that answered the question, but having the content in folders so that way you can, because again, different strokes for different folks. If you have written content and pictures, maybe using Buffer or Hootsuite, whatever it is, Buffer, Hootsuite. There's another one that escaped me. Maybe using those actually work better for you because you can just upload the still content, copy post. But for me, majority of my content is video, so using those apps really doesn't help. I don't know if that helped answer the question.
Well, you actually hit on organization too, which is even better because again, that's things a lot of people struggle with. My Lord, we've got a lawyer at our firm who he has an office. He only uses his office when all three of our conference rooms are taken with clients. Otherwise, he typically has stuff spread out in definitely one conference room, maybe another one at the same time. And he's got stuff stacked back in the library, back where my desk is.
Oh, wow.
So like when we're talking about like, if you needed to find something with him, like God only knows where it is. And so organization is important, especially if you're sending it to somebody else. I like the standard operating procedures because that's the same thing as having an operations manual for your business. You need for anybody to walk in and be able to see exactly what they're, supposed to do in certain situations instead of having to teach somebody every single time they walk in the door and then they have to teach somebody else, or every time a new task comes up, it needs to be easily accessible. So that's great that you showed a way that you are utilizing those organizational patterns and how somebody else can literally just pick it up and say, oh, I know how to do this. I don't have to ask you 10 questions just to get through one little task. Or if they forget from time to time, it's there. But so are you or they are like, how often are you scheduling content?
Good
And
question.
it is different. People have to find their rhythm, but hearing how you're doing it might help somebody else trial and error to figure out what's best to use for them.
Yeah. So when it comes to actually, I guess I kind of lied. When it comes to scheduling content, we actually, because it's video content, we don't really schedule it. We have our own schedule. So what we did is we, made a board. You can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So we just let me just do text. I hate drawing with this. I need an actual mouse. Okay. But we basically just made like a chart. Like, hey, Mondays, this is the type of content that we want to post. Tuesday, this is the type of content. Wednesday, Thursday, so on and so forth. So if we're low on a certain piece of content, he'll let me know and I'll create the content and put it in that bucket. So that way he knows Monday's coming. All right, bet it's a podcast. Go ahead and post that.
Now, is he posting or are you posting, or is it a combination of both?
So he's strictly posting. So he's posting on the business page. So I have my personal Instagram pages, and then I have my business pages. So he's strictly doing my business pages. So he's doing my Beast Training Online, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook page.
And so in that sense, there's even some division of like, you guys each have your own stuff that you're because that even when you're talking about scheduling, and I ask that because I'm thinking of people who have entrepreneurs that actually have multiple people who are doing this, like not just having the days of what goes up, but having this person, like charted, this person is responsible for this
Hmm.
person is responsible for this on these days, so that you don't have nobody posting because everybody thinks somebody else is doing it, or too many people posting in the same place and something else getting dropped.
Yeah,
So
this is kind of on topic, but kind of off topic. I think having business communication tools is important as well, because like I noticed, when we first started, it was just text message going back and forth. And you know how like somebody sends you a text, but like you can't really respond in depth right then
oh
and
yeah,
there, but you'll read the message and then
and
a
then
day or
forget
two
about it
goes
later.
by, day or two goes by, you're like, oh shit, I forgot to. So what we actually ended up doing is just moving everything like to a business location. So
Uh-huh.
Slack is a free tool that you can use where you can create different threads depending on the different topics in your business.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So like I have a social media thread. So me and him, if there's something going on with social media, he needs a question, whatever, he just types it in there and I can answer it. So it helps
Uh-huh.
keep the conversations organized. So that way it's not like, damn, like a week ago they said this. Let me go ahead and scroll through these messages.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and
so
it's also easier if you have more than one person that you're communicating with, because then you're not like, if one person shoots you a text about a question and you answer that question, but nobody else has access to it, then somebody else later has that same question. Again, we're adding layers and we're adding things that just waste time. So
mhm,
these are like, for somebody who's actually practicing it, this is stuff that people need to know, because I mean, a lot of this stuff you're talking about, I've never heard of before. And most people, if they haven't been, you know, posting online content like that, they're not going to have a clue where to start or how to start or
yeah.
what's easier, especially if you aren't an organization, time management kind of person. Like that's a whole discipline all all in itself.
Yeah, and I even and I should even maybe even take a step further back. I think, if you're just beginning to create content, I think it's just figuring out, well, like we talked about before, who's your ideal client, what's the type of content that they would want to see, and begin and start there. And even if you don't know, when you want to post, just choose one day. Choose one day and just start there. If you're consistent with that one day, as you're building up more content, then you can move on to other days. Because that all of this can be overwhelming. It definitely can be overwhelming. What is it? Paralysis by analysis, or is it the other way around?
Analysis paralysis.
Analysis
Yeah.
paralysis.
We need to, the beginners need to do that whole keep it simple, stupid method.
Yeah, like just find a day. Once you get consistent with that one day, then you add
Add
on another
another.
day.
Yeah.
Once you get consistent with that day, and then hopefully by then you've like began creating content, you got into a flow, you know what your audience needs. Then you can begin, outsourcing the responsibilities and duties and things. But uh start simple, one day a week, one type of content. There's this one guy on Instagram that I follow, and the only type of content that he posts are quotes. That's it. Black screen with a quote. 1 point something million followers, which is just proof like you ain't got to reinvent the
Yeah.
wheel. Like,
No. And you don't have to make things complicated. No, I mean, that's even like with my blog, like I chose the free, completely simple, I don't care if there are ads on it version of WordPress. And people keep finding it. Like, do I have a ton of subscribers? No, I've only been doing this for as long as we've been doing this, actually. But the fact that I still get random likes from people, or that even if people aren't subscribing, I still get likes from the same people on different blogs on different days. It's like you don't always have to like go into this advanced high tech stuff to get people's attention with stuff.
mhm,
People find you.
yeah. And then I think last thing as we're running low on time is lower our
Good.
expectations and maybe separate ourselves from the outcome. Like I know this was one of the things that I struggled with is I would post the content. I would take forever to create the content. I would post it, get 10 likes. I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like, but it's like, no, like who cares? Like you can't control the algorithm. All you can control is what you're posting and when you're posting. So
And
just
the
like
and
separate yourself from the
yeah,
results.
and understand that the impact is more than just a like. Sometimes the impact is it's like it's since we're basketball people, it's like basketball. Not everything that's important shows up on a stat line or in a
Yeah.
box score. It's
Mhm.
more than that. So your box score for one game may be shit, but you might have been the reason that the team won because of the way you played defense or the way you hustled and grabbed, loose balls on the floor, fought for jump balls or things like that. Like there's more than just those likes, that the things that you can visibly see that content is doing.
Yeah. Just separate yourself from the outcome. Just post it. Who cares? One like, 3,000 likes. Who cares? Just post it. Like, and as entrepreneurs, like if we decided to go fishing on our own. So if we want to go fishing, like we need to put the bait on the hook and just keep casting that mud. We don't get no bites. I bet. Let's get another one. Cast it again. Like we just got to keep going with it. So, but yeah. Any last words? Any final words before we hop off here?
No, I think this was a great, if I can talk, a great way to close up last week since we got cut off, and so that we could actually see how the chat GPT works for people who like it is a lot simpler to find information. So no, I think this was a good one because it covered a lot of things that we can also dive deeper into later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. We're gonna peace out then.
All righty. Are we connecting about our stuff later?
Yeah, I can. You want to just do a phone call in like 10 minutes or so?
Yeah, that works.
That's cool. Are you driving to the office? You about to drive to the office?
I leave around 10